Welcome back to the channel. Today in this video I'll show you how to build a web API right from the beginning in just 20 minutes with the help of GitHub Copilot. Before we start, I'll ask you a question. If you need to build an API which looks like this, which has two operations, a product API, let's say product get and post, and if you would like to build such an API right from the beginning yourself, which should have a unit testing, integration testing, mocking, and everything, all the patterns which it looks to be. And how many days you will take? A day, a week, or maybe more than that? What if I tell you I would be able to show you entire implementation just in 20 minutes with the help of GitHub Copilot? Would you believe that? Possibly not. Let's look into the demonstration, and within just 20 minutes or max 30 minutes, I'll be able to show you this API in development right from the beginning. Let's begin. So I've opened the empty Visual Studio window, and that is Visual Studio 2022 edition. And here you can see that I have the GitHub Copilot installed, and this is the GitHub Copilot chat, which you can open it from this view option, and this is the GitHub Copilot chat window, and thus we are going to use it. If you do not have the GitHub Copilot chat window, you can go to the extension, manage extension, and install the extension, and you may need to restart your Visual Studio after that. And that's if you would like, I can discuss that in a separate video, but that's not the scope of this video for now. So as we have the empty solution or empty Visual Studio window, let's create a new project. We are going to call it as in, let's say, product API or the API development. So I'm going to use the Microsoft.NET Core, ASP.NET Core API template. That's the template I'm using. If you want, you can search the template right here from the search option. So let's use that. I'm going to call it as in the, and I'm going to keep it as is here in the demo API folder. I'm going to give the name of the solution as is. Let's click on the next, and that's where we have to specify the .NET Core version, and the version I would like to keep it as is, version 8, and then HTTPS. I don't want to have a Docker. I would like to have open API specification so that we can use the API with the help of Swagger. Let's click on create. That will create a solution with WebAPI template, which will have a default weather controller, which you would typically see when you create an API project by default. So here's the weather controller. First of all, I'm going to delete this controller. So at the moment our API is empty as we have deleted this API controller. Next, I'm going to add a business library project because we would like to have a project which has a 3-layer architecture or multi-layer architecture basically. So I'm going to create a class library project, which is again a .NET Core application. We're going to call it as a business lib is the name of the business library. You can give it any name. .NET Core is the framework I like to choose. Same thing. Now the very first thing we need, as we are building the product API, so very first thing we need the product model. So to create a model, I'm going to use the chat GPT window, and here I'm going to call it, give it a command from this particular option, create a product model with 10 attributes, and that's it. Enter, and that should create a product class which should have 10 attributes. If you have your own model, if you want to use that, you can use it as is. As I'm doing it from the scratch, I would like to build the model themselves, and that's how you can see that how beautifully it is crafting the model for me. Now I have two options. I can simply copy this with the help of this button click. It will copy the code, or I can simply insert it. Let's click on the insert as a new file. So I'll click on the, I have the new file available. That's not saved into the solution. To save into the solution, I'll click on Ctrl S or press Ctrl. So that's our business library project, and I'm going to save it here. So model is ready now. As you can see here, if I go back to the solution, our model is ready. Next thing what we need is the product service. So I'll again make use of Copilot, and I'll ask command create a product service dot cs, which inherit product iProduct service interface, which has two method, product get and product create. Both the method should use HTTP client to get the product and post or create the product. If HTTP response is not success, then capture the throw the error, otherwise return product model response. That's one thing. It should also use iLogger for logging, and HTTP implementation must use send async method. So I want to use the send async method because I know we have the send async method available, so it should use only that. So let's click on here, enter, and that should generate my interface as well as the service with two methods, and both the methods should have the HTTP service, which means that my product service is making call to another service. This is going to be an integration scenario, so where the product is not getting created from the database, but actually I'm creating a product with the help of some other API call, and that's how the implementation is actually been generated. If I just make it a little bit wider or bigger, you can see that it has created this product service which is implementing this interface, and it has the dependency injection of the HTTP client and logger as well, and then it has got the get product order, and then so and so on. So let's insert this new file. Obviously it has not created the interface, but let's see that if we can this missing product iProduct interface, iProduct service.cs interface, please create that. So it's going to create that as well because it's missing there. So that's your product interface, which will save it again in the new files. I got both the implementation. So here is our product service. You can see that. Let me just save it as is because we need to make a slight modification to this implementation, which I'll show you what. I'll go to the business library and I'll save it here itself. You want to change, you can change it. Again, I'll go to the product service. So now I have my product interface and the product service as well. There are some NuGet package extension errors which I'm getting it right now because of course that has to be added in the solution itself. So what are the NuGet packages it requires to add? So let's see that. So it's first of all it's looking for a NuGet package for iLogger. So that's going to be the iLogger logging extension or logging NuGet package. So it has basically given you the usings block. It's just the NuGet packages are not being added to your solution. That's why you have to add it, which I'm sure you are already aware about it as you are the .NET developer. So I've added both the NuGet package to my solution, and I'll give you a quick walkthrough of the implementation. As you can see that I have told that I would like to use the send async method for both get and post. So it's using send async method, which means that it needs to have the HTTP request message implementation, and then I'm just passing the HTTP request, and if it is the request is not succeeded, it will throw an exception. If it is succeeded, it will log it. Now one thing I'm missing it here is the API may require to have some kind of a bearer token. So let's generate the bearer token. So the product service method should also use bearer token. Please add that. So let's see if that adds to the implementation. It has not. Let me try one more time. Sometimes it happens that when you give the command, sometimes it's not going to recognize that, but you can try again and that may give you a correct result. So let's see. And it says that it's going to add the authorization header to the implementation as well. Let's see that. It has given me the code the way I would like to use it. That's fine, but the problem with this code is it's not using the Microsoft Online version of the like client ID secret kind of thing to generate the token, which obviously it's not going to be useful, or maybe, but at least I have not used that. So what I'll do is I'll use the token. I will use another command. The token should be generated with client ID secrets and client ID secret, client secret, and environment variable. So consider that these values will be available in your application settings or the configuration settings. So what it will do is it will try and read the value from the configuration settings. So that's how usually you do in the production, right? So let's see how the implementation is generating it. So let me just add this to our product service. So you can see that as I've given the command, whatever command I'm trying to give it to the Copilot, it's doing the exact implementation. I do not have to write anything. It just, I need to know what exactly I'm trying to do. So let me just change the implementation here and I'll show you what exactly it has configured. So it needs to have the NuGet package installed. So I'm going to call it as the NuGet package, this one. So that will install the Microsoft extensions NuGet package. Next, I will install the NuGet package for the Microsoft identity and client, and that will generate the identity and client NuGet package. All right. So with that, our client ID secrets are retrieving from your web config or from the environment variable. So I should have go to the next step. What we need to do now is we need to create a controller which will implement these two methods. So I'll say create product controller, product service, and controller should have get and post product and method, and this method should have a call to product service to create and get the product. It should also have logging and try catch implementation. In case if there are any exception, then API status must be HTTP 500, otherwise 200 or 201. So let's see if that creates a controller with all those two methods. So here is my controller definition. You can see that it has created the dependency of the product service interface and the logger as well, so that I can have the logging. And now I've got the product by ID interface, get product method, and the post product method as well. I'll say insert into new file because this is a new file implementation. I'll save it as project inside the controller folder. I'll try and add this controller method. Now obviously I need to resolve the dependency or these errors because I have to have the business library reference to my API. So let's add this. Let's go to the business library project as in reference. So that should resolve this error. So now we have our product API reference, and then product API is making call to get product, and then the post product as well. And in case of there are any errors, that's the error we are sending it. Okay. Now another thing is I need the dependency registration, dependency registration of product service into program.cs file. So let's see how it registers the dependency. So I don't need to think about what's the way, what kind of a dependency I need to register and how I need to register it. So let's see if that can help me with the dependency injection as well. So you can see that that's the line of code I need, because the rest of the things I might have already. So let me just first of all copy this code, because I believe I just need this code. So let's go to the product program.cs file, and as you can see that we already have those methods already available. So let's add or register our product service. Use the add http client method. So that's the one. So as I said, if I try and run the API right now, it will throw an error. It will throw an error because we do not have the API implementation at the moment, because our API is making call to some other APIs. For example, here it's given it is going to call https://api.example.products to get the product, and similarly to create the product. But we do not have this API developed as so far, and that's why we are getting the error. So to generate the bearer token, I have configured what it requires to. For example, I've given the client ID, secret, and audience. That should be enough to generate the bearer token. I can get the bearer token right now. That's absolutely fine. But to make a call to the API, we need to have the API available. I'll ask Copilot to create extension. The method should have the wiremock.net implementation for get and post product, and it should use product model bogus NuGet package. Okay, because bogus can support the English and other languages, so specifically I've given the command to generate the or use the random data with bogus. So here is our extension method class which we will be creating. So as you can see that it's using the extension, give it a name as in the wiremock, and it's trying to generate the random product using the bogus NuGet package. Here it has started the wiremock extension, as you can see here, and now after that it has mocking for product get and product post, both of them. So let's insert this file, and here on the product I will, in the get method, what I'll do is a little bit wider. I'll say star so that it uses the file. I'll save it, and I would like to keep it into the business library as in my extension method. So that's the method which we would like to use. Now of course I need to have these NuGet packages installed, so let's use the NuGet package extension to header, and the value, if you would like to use any specific value, then you can say that specify the value. Otherwise you can use it like this, use any random value, so that it will ensure that if a request is going to be this, then it will use this particular method. Right now let's use this extension method in our program.cs file. That should be okay. So the base URI, which was API example api.com, I've changed it to the configurable value. As you can see, it's now retrieved from the base URI parameter, and this parameter we are reading it as in the environment variable. So if you're deploying the APIs, you have to set the environment variable or the configuration variable. If you deploy it in Azure, then you can set it as in the app setting, or if you are deploying it in the Kubernetes, you can set these values as an environment variable, which you can set in fact all these values can be set up as an environment variable if you would like to. Now where exactly I'm setting this value, as we are using the wiremock extension, so what I'm going to do is I'm here setting the variable value. Remember that this extension method we are only invoking if it is running from the development environment, right? We have specified that in the program.cs file. So this is the wiremock we are starting, so it will start a local host server with this particular port, and the URL we are setting, the server URL is going to be our base URL, which we are setting it as an environment variable, and whenever this value will be hit, or it will fetch the value directly from there. API host has started now. There you go. So now if I try it out, I'll give any ID, any value, because it's using the wire mock behind the scenes. My API is making call to some other APIs from the business libraries, so it should basically invoke the response from there, and I should have a random response which are generated from bogus and returned from the wire mock. Similarly, if I would like to post a product, let's say any request I give, because I'm treating or returning my API directly from the wire mock, which is again a random response, it's absolutely working fine. So without having the dependency of any external API, I have developed a logic on my own in my API which has a get and post endpoint, and it's basically routing the call directly to there. Okay, so that's it in this configuration. Now just to revise here, we have built a product API which has a controller to get and post. Then the call goes to business library, it generates the bearer token and all, and then makes a call to our external API, and which basically do the get and post operation for us. Now the last thing what we have it as part of this particular demonstration, which I promise, is about the unit testing. And for that reason, what I've done is I have also added a new project, which is a unit testing project for the controller test. Let's go to the GitHub Copilot. We can say the command create a unit test case for the product controller. So it's going to create a unit test case for the product controller, which we can click on the insert file, and that we can save it as in the inside our test project. So I'll save it as is the product controller test, and we'll see if implementation makes sense or not. First of all, obviously I have to take a reference of my controller into this particular project. So let's add the reference of both library and this, because using both the projects library and controllers together. And let's see if we have this mocking framework already installed or not. So I'm going to install the mock package MOQ, and that should use it. So if you look at the unit testing project, how beautifully it is. It has done the mocking for you, it has done the registration for your API operations, and it has in fact has generated some random response which you can basically use for your API to return. Obviously my tests might fail or might pass, it depends. 10 unit test cases, because I've created a project which is of type n unit. So that's the reason I'm asking the Copilot to generate the unit testing according to that. And this time I'm not getting any error, which is good. Okay, so let's see if that works fine and we are able to run our test cases. So I'll simply run all test cases. So my test cases are fast, which is really good news, because I've not done any effort at all. I just need to write some command. I'll give you another tip to generate the unit test cases. For example, I'm into this product service and I would like to generate the unit test cases for all the method of my product service, especially the product all the method of my product service, of course the public available methods which are part of the interface. So what I can do is I can simply right click and then go to the menu item, ask Copilot. That will do the job for me. Or the keyboard shortcut is Alt key and then /, and that's where you can ask to have another server / and then you can specify the documents, test, optimize the code, and so on. If there are problems you would like to fix it, that's what you want to do. So if I press the enter here, what it will do, it will try and generate the unit test cases for the entire product service class, which is very good. There it is. So it has generated the entire class for me. If I say accept, it will create a new class. It has created. If I save it to appropriate location, which is my test case project, that's it is. And now you can see that it has done the setup, it has done the unit test cases, validation, all the packages and everything what it's looking for. It has done the setup for that as well, all of these. Right now let's clean up these errors. It may possible your test cases might fail depending upon the kind of logic you might have in your API, but you get the idea, right? You're now do not have to write any such kind of mocking features or test scenarios, setting up the assertion, act and all, and it has generated the code in a proper order. You can see that executing the test cases, as I said, it may fail, but you get the code base, right? And it has failed. You can get the idea it has failed because it's not able to fetch the value of the secret. Obviously you don't have the app setting values here, so it's not getting it done for you, which means that you may have to do some more extra effort to fix these test cases, but you get the template. Now last not the least, what I'll do is I'll show you another tip about the documentation. So remember when we had we were generating the test cases, I pressed alt forward slash and then again a forward slash, and there is a option for generate the documentation. So if I choose this option, this will generate the documentation for all my methods within this particular class. So let's do that, because right now if you look at any of my methods does not have any such documentation, which is not a good idea. You should have the documentation for all your methods to be having a professional look. So let's accept that. You can see that now all my methods are having, including the constructor, are having this documentation, which is so good. Let's do the same thing for the product controller as well. Alt and then simply again, this is the repetition, documentation or docs. I'll say enter. And while it is generating the documents, you can also do like explain a particular method if you would like to explain or the explanation on the implementation. Again, I've generated the documentation for the API. Now let's do the explanation kind of thing. So here we have our method, and I would like to, let's say, get the explanation of the method. So what I'll do again, Alt 8 and Alt 8 and then explanation and then press enter. So that will explain what exactly this method is doing. And you can see that this has the entire implementation. The method takes int id, then we are generating this, and then we generate the bearer token. We are calling this method and all. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. I know it has taken more than what I promised, but we have covered more than what I have discussed initially. So hope that should be okay. I will see you in the next video, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching it, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you very much.